I just bought this early 2013 15-inch MacBook Pro. Yes, this right here. But is it still good? So in this video, we are going to be talking about where I bought it from and how much I paid for it, its performance, graphics, display, keyboard and trackpad, battery life, software compatibility, like everything about this computer. And is this computer, now approaching 8 years old in 2021, still worth buying? I'll be leaving the timestamps on the screen and also in the description, so you can skip to the parts you want to watch if you want to, because this video is going to be quite long. And footnote, I originally intended for it to be resold to, well, make myself some money. But if this is good enough, then I just might as well keep this as my main machine for a couple of years and wait and see if better Apple Silicon Macs will come out. But as of now, it's still intended for reselling. But so first, where did I buy this and how much did I pay for it? Well, I got this off of eBay, of course. And I think I got a pretty good deal, actually. This laptop is pretty much spec'd out for its time, with a 2.7 GHz quad-core 3rd Gen Intel Core i7, 16 GB of RAM, half a terabyte of SSD, and an NVIDIA 650M discrete graphics card with 1 GB of VRAM, which might not sound that impressive, but it was the best at the time. This computer also has a wide selection of ports, including 2 USB-A ports, 2 Thunderbolt 1 or mini display ports, a headphone jack, an HDMI port, and also an SD card reader. So chances are, if you're trying to plug something into this computer, this probably has the port for it. Well, maybe except for USB-C and Ethernet. The only part of this that isn't upgraded to the max is the storage, which back then can be upgraded to 3/4 of a terabyte if you're buying it new 8 years ago. But 512 is still like very good because that's what the 16-inch MacBook Pro that's still on sale today comes with. And if you're buying this new in 2013, it actually costed $2,800 because of like how high spec it is. But because of a combination of depreciation and the fact that I got a pretty good, if not very good deal, I bought this off of a large seller on eBay for, wait for it, only $407. Like, that's cheap. For context, these upgraded ones usually go for at least $550. Not to mention, this is actually in pretty good condition too. And with these specs, this computer is 100% still usable in 2021. So let's get into its performance. Even though it has its fancy quad-core i7 and everything, it's still an 8-year-old computer nonetheless. So the performance is not particularly great in a modern perspective, but it is way better than my old 2014 MacBook Air and many laptops from before 2017 or 18. It got slightly below 3100 in Geekbench 5, which makes it more than 2 times better than my 2014 MacBook Air, which got like 1300, and just slightly slower than my 2020 iPhone SE, which costed about the same as that computer. And in Cinebench, the benchmark test that pushes the CPU and GPU to their limits with the dedicated graphics on, it got more than 3200 points, which leaves it not too much behind the 11th gen quad-core Intel Core i7. This computer is fast. And just a very interesting note, because Intel, well, doesn't like to innovate, the performance between the mid-2012 MacBook Pros to the 2017 MacBook Pros are about the same, at least according to Geekbench scores. There isn't really like a huge difference, which is very interesting, which means this is actually almost as powerful as a 2017 MacBook Pro. And because of how fast it is, even though it's not so fast anymore in a modern perspective, it's still fast. Everything just opens in like almost an instant. Even though here and there might be a bit of lag when running intensive applications in the background, but overall, you won't be worried about this computer being slow or anything. It still flies in Final Cut Pro and other apps And it took just a minute and 53 seconds to export a video in 4K 60 that's color graded and edited. Even on the newest operating system, macOS 11 Big Sur, which by the way this computer doesn't even natively support. I'll get on how I updated this to Big Sur even though it doesn't support it natively later. And this entire video was edited on this machine, and overall there isn't a single noticeable lag when editing on this. And as I said, you are probably gonna get the same performance on this as a 2017 MacBook Pro. So yeah, it's fast. But there's only one problem. It does tend to get very hot, just like many other 15-inch MacBook Pros and high-performance Intel machines, because Intel CPUs are basically room heaters. It once, when I'm running Cinebench, even reached nearly 105 degrees Celsius in Cinnabon. Like, this is literally above boiling, so yeah, it's very hot. And yes, the fans are at full blast. And another major problem with this is that the fans don't really start spinning until the computer gets like very hot. Like, look, it got very close to or even over 100 degrees Celsius back here, and the fans are barely even running. Probably to keep noise down, but still, this is really stupid. Now, graphics aren't particularly great on this machine. The 650M is actually pretty weak for dedicated graphics in a modern perspective. Even though it performs about the same in CPU as the 2017 MacBook Pro, its graphics is just not nearly as good as the 2017 or even 2015 MacBook Pros. But it's still better than integrated graphics at least. In Unity Heaven, gaming benchmark, in the extreme preset, it got an average of 9.5 frames per second and a score of 238. Which isn't great for serious gaming, but if you want to game on this thing, then at least it'll be, let's say, somewhat playable. You can play 2K videos on YouTube just fine. And it can even play 4K videos smoothly. Well, if you ignore the loud fan noise. As I said earlier, UI lags are very rare, and doing video or photo editing on this is totally fine. So overall, performance and graphics wise, this isn't a beast, but it's good. And also fast, but not particularly fast. But warning, there's a common defect on these Retina mid-2012 and early 2013 MacBook Pros with dedicated graphics. The graphics power chip is placed under a stress point for some reason, so it will sometimes stop working. Screens may flicker or turn black altogether, and they may randomly kernel panic, so if you're buying one, look for ones that doesn't have this problem. Now, another huge selling point of this computer back then is the display. And yes, it's amazing. Or for me, who came from a MacBook Air was like a 720p screen. It's mind-blowing. So this is a 15.4-inch display with a resolution of 2880 by 1800 or 220 pixels per inch, which makes it more high-res than 2K but also lower than 4K. It's so good that this is almost the same resolution Apple is using with the 16-inch MacBook Pro even today. It also has great viewing angle since it's an IPS display and it also gets pretty bright. The only two complaints I have about this is that this model does not support P3 white color. It was only added to the 2016 Pros and later. This shouldn't be a big deal for everyday users, but it's sometimes an issue for professionals that want their screen to display more colors. The display is also anti-glare, which is great because the reflection is down by a lot. But over time, the anti-glare coating on the screen will slowly peel off, and it has severely affected some MacBook Pros even today. Mine does have a little bit of this problem on the left bezel of the screen, but it's not really noticeable. But it can be really noticeable on ones with severe cases of this issue. And to make it worse, Apple doesn't repair the display unless it started to peel off within 4 years after the initial manufacturing date. But aside from these issues, this display is gorgeous, clear, and high-res. And aside from its slightly thicker than average bezel, still fits very nicely into the 2021 world. Like, sometimes I even forgot that this computer was released 8 years ago. It doesn't feel like an 8 years old computer. This display has really aged well. Another great aspect of this laptop is the keyboard and trackpad. Apple has one of the best laptop keyboards in the industry. Well, at least until they switch to the dumpster fire, aka the butterfly keyboard. The keyboard is tactile and key travel is great. And the only complaint I have with this keyboard, well, I shouldn't have the right to complain about it, because it's my fault that I didn't look at the eBay pictures carefully before buying it, but it has a Canadian-French keyboard layout. So it has a lot of weird symbols and accent letter on it. But if you're buying for one, you'll just usually end up with the keyboard layout you are most comfortable with. The keyboard is also backlit, so it's great for typing in the dark. So this keyboard is basically almost flawless. Like, it doesn't have sticky keys or anything like that. It's a great keyboard. And the trackpad is great too. It's a fairly big trackpad, not as big as the Touch Bar MacBook Pros, but at least bigger than many PC laptops trackpad that still sold today. It's covered with a matte glass finish, so it's premium and comfortable to the touch. Although that also makes it prone to cracking, but I mean, you have to try really hard to crack the trackpad anyway. It supports multi-touch gestures such as pinch to zoom and swipe with 4 fingers to quickly switch between full-screen apps and many more gestures, which are very convenient gestures, and I use them all the time. The trackpad could be bigger, I mean, just look at all the empty space around it. But I can't complain much since this is a 8 years old computer nonetheless, and I can't expect it to have all the modern designs and technologies. With all of these high specs, how long will it usually last? Well, the battery life is not great. Because it's so thin and at the same time, you have to drive that insanely high quality display. According to Apple, it can only last for around 7 hours when the battery is brand new. But after 8 years, the battery has degraded significantly. And even though mine's battery only has like 300 cycles on it, its health is only at 76%, which makes it now last for only a bit more than 5 hours on a full charge. It's not great. And I usually just keep it plugged in all the time. Charging speed is average with the MagSafe 2 charger, but the MagSafe charger snaps on very satisfyingly. And what makes MagSafe even better is that because it automatically snaps on when you place the charger near the port, you can plug it into the dark easily. So the charging method is great, but the battery doesn't really last for very long. And now in the world of COVID, speaker, microphone, and webcam quality is now more important than ever. And they are, as expected, average. Because, this computer is 8 years old. The speakers are unexpectedly dull and quiet for a laptop of its size, and the bass is basically non-existent. It's fine for Zoom calls and casual music listening, but doing anything more than that, it will sound bad. It's just not good. Here's how it sounds compared to a 2013 iMac. It's maybe considered an average or slightly below average speaker in 2021. The microphone is average too. It's fine for Zoom calls, but don't expect good results when using it to record podcasts or music. It also has a 720p webcam, which is fairly bad. And it's also unusually dark for some reason, probably because of the black cover glass, but I don't know. So here's how the webcam and microphone sound like. Yeah, I think it's terrible. I mean, it's expected since it came out 8 years ago. Comment down below, is this terrible or not? And to use this in 2021, you'll have to have a software version that's new enough to support the latest softwares, like Zoom, Google Chrome, Discord, Final Cut Pro 10, and others. And if you're an extreme Apple sheep, unlike me, then you'll probably realize that this machine actually does not support macOS Big Sur, the latest version of macOS as of the filming of this video, natively. The latest version this early 2013 can run is Catalina from 2019. You need a late 2013 or later model to use Big Sur. And despite what I may have said 8 months ago, I hate macOS Big Sur. I actually got used to macOS Big Sur, and Catalina just looks old to me now and not modern. So I just have to use Big Sur. Now macOS Catalina still receiving security updates and most apps still support it. But I just like my computer running the latest version of software. Patch Sur is a patcher, or software that can trick unsupported machines into thinking they can run the latest version of macOS. All you need is some free disk space and a 16GB USB stick. You just download it and just follow the on-screen instructions. Then you have to boot up from the USB drive and hey, now you've successfully installed macOS Big Sur on an incompatible machine. Then you just have to open the Patch Sur app again and patch some cats so things like Wi-Fi and USB can work, and you're done.
Wait, that's illegal.
But I'm just not going to go in depth about how I did it. There's plenty of tutorials on YouTube, so just search it up. But if you're not a techie like me, then Catalina is still fine and every software should be compatible. Now I'll just spend a short amount of time talking about repairability and upgradability, and it's not great. If you want to replace the display, you'll have to pay like a lot of money because the display assembly is like fused together and laminated together, so you have to replace the entire top lid if your screen cracks, hence making a replacement so expensive. The battery is glued down, which makes it near impossible to replace without replacing the entire top case, and the RAM is soldered down to the logic board too. So as George Washington have said hundreds of years ago, no upgrading without replacing. The only component in this computer that you can upgrade after purchasing is the SSD. And upgrading it is actually pretty easy, but you have to use an NVMe SSD with an adapter because the SSD slot on the motherboard is proprietary. Okay, so after all this talk, is this 8-year-old machine still worth buying today, like on eBay or other sources? Well, it's complicated. So if you can find an early 2013 or mid 2012, because these two models are actually very similar, with upgraded RAM or upgraded storage or both, in good condition with no graphics issues and no severe stain gate, and you found one under $400, I say go for it. And I'll say it again, be aware of the stain gate issue or graphics issue, so read the listing descriptions carefully. But if you can't find one for like under 500 or 550, then you'll be better off with the late 2013 or mid 2015 models, since you'll be paying more than half a grand anyway, so why not give yourself a nice upgrade? Keep in mind these 2012 to 2015 Retina MacBook Pros are now only good for like semi-professionals and everyday users and tasks such as moderate to semi-heavy photo or video editing and web browsing. So if you're a true pro, then these models probably won't keep up with the extremely demanding workflows you're probably having. So if you're a true pro, just buy a brand new 27-inch iMac or a Mac Pro. And here concludes our video. This 8 years old, early 2013, Retina 15-inch MacBook Pro with 16GB of RAM and 512GB of storage I got for $400. It has aged surprisingly well, and is still 100% usable for even some professional tasks, even today. It can be a great budget video editing machine or just 4K YouTube watching device. So, thank you for watching. If you find this video helpful, please give it a like. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, then subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next video.